Who uses Photoshop in this room? Just curious. Who uses Camera Raw in Photoshop? Who uses the bridge? Okay, so whoever raised the hand 3 times, you know Lightroom. That's all I can tell you, right? It is those 3 applications to me, and that's how I learned it. I learned it because it reminded me of something else, right? And so I live in the bridge. I love Photoshop. I use the Raw. I opened up Lightroom, and I had it all in one space. You see, I had to open 3 different little apps to get all those 3 different things, and I came into Lightroom, and I got one-stop shopping with a little Photoshop added in for good measure. And my clients, a little bridge added in for their good measure, right? So I'm going to show you some of those connections as well. So we're just going to give you an overview of Lightroom, and of course, I believe that we have some classes coming up at FMC to continue that process. Now, I didn't open Lightroom. I actually opened the bridge in Photoshop first, but I'm going to open Lightroom now because I had more than one Lightroom catalog set up, so I wanted to be able to pick. And I'm going to pick one, and I'll choose Open. And you can see this is a perfect example of why I love Lightroom, because clearly I have different catalogs for different clients, and maybe personal ones as well. And do I want to have them all in one space? No, I like everything organized. So we're going to see the organization as well. So I'll open that up. So you can see here, when I first open it up, you can see on the top there is my module picker right there. And there's my library. That's the place I live in a lot. If I have to develop something, I'll go into Develop. You can see the panels will start to change as I go in to those different modules. Slideshow, I want to make a presentation, maybe send it out to the client as a PowerPoint presentation or a movie or something like that, where they can, I can share it with them and then they can comment back to me. If I want to send them a print, I can send it out on this page here, and you can see how I can set up different templates there. So I may just give them a sheet of all their photos and they can comment on that. And if I have to build a web page and I don't know how to build a web page, I can, of course, get Adobe to do that for me too. But you can see how we have these different quick modules. And what's nice about this is Lightroom is setting it up for people who don't know how to use all the rest of the line of Adobe. If you don't know Dreamweaver, can you still build a website? Yes, you can. Right? And so it's supporting us and giving us little starter files as well. I'll go back to the library. So you can see here I have my top bar there, which clearly was my modules. I have my panels on the side. And this one here is more on navigation, and this one here is more on keywords and development. And then I have my film strip on the bottom. And my tools are tagged to the library state. So does anyone know how to hide the panels in Photoshop? Anyone hide panels in Photoshop? Anyone know how to do that?
There's a little arrow thing.
In Photoshop.
F.
How about tab? How about Shift tab? The reason why I'm asking you that is because those are, to me, Photoshop keyboard shortcuts and maybe Adobe keyboard shortcuts because I use them across the Adobe line. Okay, these are panels, and you might be used to panels in all of Adobe's applications. Do you see how I'm resizing that panel? I'm getting that little arrow on both sides there. I'll zoom up on this so you can see it better. And you can see how I'm resizing. And this is just getting hold of that workspace, making your own, feeling comfortable with it.
So tab removes them and puts them back, right?
Tab hides them and shows them. Yes, it's a toggle. And if you like that, try that in another Adobe application, and I promise you, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Right? This is the good rule of Adobe. Adobe will always act like Adobe unless it can't. That's pretty much the rule. If you like something, try it in other applications. Chances are it'll be exactly that or something close. That's a pretty good rule, isn't it? So you think I know a lot of applications because I'm brilliant, but I'm not. I know a lot of applications because they act like each other, and I'm only adding a little bit of information from one to the other. So I'm not brilliant. I just kind of keep on adding to my information. And if Adobe is going to act like Adobe, those are the things that go across all applications, I'm going to learn them. Right, so the tab I know because I use it across more applications than you can realize. Pretty much just about everything. Now, you also know that you do have these little arrows here, and you can hide, expand, and minimize those as well. So you have a lot of ways to, you can click on the icon, you can go for the quick key, right? Keyboard shortcuts are just ways to get us to do things faster without having to move our mouse across a gigantic monitor, right? Everybody has a really big monitor, so you don't want to take 10 days to slide your mouse across. You may pick up some keyboard shortcuts to reference that, right? Now, before I go on, I might want to share those keyboard shortcuts with you. And do you see how all I had to do here was use a little keyboard shortcut to get it up? And I used Command and the /.
Say that again?
Command, no, /. That would be Control. Anyone a PC? A PC?
Yes.
Control. I'll try to be cross-platform today. Control. Control /. That's the question mark, or Command /. Let me see if that will do the same thing. And you see how I got my develop shortcuts? And so, as I told you, I don't live in Lightroom every day. I do keep client work in it, and I like to have my client work in it because it enables me to do a lot of things with less work. But I don't live in it on a daily basis, and so sometimes I have to kind of refresh my brain and look how quickly I can find all my favorite quick keys. Do you think Adobe was thinking that too? They were like, you're not in it every day. You're in it once a week to get all your files in, organize them, and then you're out again until you need something. Oh, we should give you something to help you remember how you want to work through it. So keep that one in mind. Control /, that's the question mark, right? The top letter. They would say /, but the question mark is above it. Okay, so these are just different ways that we can start to clean up our workspace, get it to where we're comfortable with it. I'm going to collapse. You see this little triangle here? That's my disclosure triangle. We're probably very used to it in other Adobe applications. Just closing it up there. Because this is my workspace, so you can see I can start hiding things. I just right-clicked or control-clicked on the Mac. And you can see here, I can even do something a little cute at the bottom. This is your workspace, right? This is your workspace. So you can start to hone in and kind of just give yourself your own setup, your own identity. Right now it says Lightroom, and now it says my name. Think about if you're a photographer and your client, you're sharing this workspace with your client, wouldn't you want your branding right there? That's a nice little feature, right? And of course, I could have actually loaded a graphic element in as well. So this is just trying to get that workspace set up for you, and you can get it to where you like it. And of course, we'll remember how we resize those panels. Okay, so I have some things in here. I've already imported some of my client work in here, and you can see here, on here, there's a folder, and then I have these subfolders in here. And I'm going to go to my desktop for 1 second. And that was my designer house. Is it pretty much the same thing? Whatever I brought in, right? So there's a mirror that I can work with here. That said and done, I'll just go ahead and import some other elements in here as well. So I'll go ahead and make sure I'm in the library there. And maybe I'll import that. Oops, wrong guy. And import my photos. Here's my grid view, and it's G for grid. Do you see that? Here's my loop view. It's E for loop at the end of the word. Come on, show me. There it is, E. My compare is C for compare. There it is. And then the last one, N, survey view N. I guess they just added an extra line to the V. Work with me there, I don't know. New? I don't know. I have. Sometimes I think Adobe runs out of keyboard shortcuts and they just throw something in. That's what I'm thinking. But I usually try to figure something out visually in my brain so I can kind of remember it. And I do think it's view with an extra line on it. That's how I remember it. So the survey is just to compare more than one, right? Compare is just comparing two at a time. I'm using the Command plus and the Command minus. Does anyone use that in any other Adobe application? Yeah, pretty obvious, right? My loop shows one view, and my grid shows all that I have right now in my fill strip. And you can see here, I mean, I didn't metadata these files today. These were all metadataed with the client. And you see, that was only a 1 star. That was a 3 star. And that one he must have really, really liked. He's the one who metadates the files. And, well, I do it with him. But he does it because I pick the photos out by if they look good. And he picks out the photos by what flowers and what bush, tree. Yeah, he's really sensitive to the product. Which means I'm always fixing photos after the fact, right? Because he'll like the photo and he'll say, just put the grass in. Just put the grass in afterwards. It's okay. And I have. So it's good to know that we can go through them. And one of his favorite sayings is, you know what I like. Which means I'm going to pick all the wrong photos to put into his piece, and then he's going to come back at me and yell at me and tell me why they weren't the right photos. So I try to metadata the files right away when I get them from him, so I can kind of have a sense of who they belong to, what garden they belong to, what he likes about them, so that I know when I'm picking, I'm not picking the wrong stuff, right? And even if there's a special flower or tree, I try to get him to name them for me, because when he calls me up, he names the tree, and trees are all trees to me. So I don't have an understanding of what he's talking about. But if it's metadata, we can do a search, right? And so that metadata is probably one of the most important things to me in Lightroom, in the bridge, and the correlation between those two products, right, is the most amazing thing about Lightroom. And I have to say, there's other products out there who do what Lightroom would do, let's say, but nobody connects to Adobe like Adobe. And my core thing is to live in Adobe. And so clearly Adobe becomes my core product. Even their side products become my core products because they're the only products I can connect without, with little work. These already have elements on them. Right now you can see here, I'm not doing any filtering right here. And you can see the filters are off down here as well. Let me come in and turn on the filters, and let me see if there's anything that is rated. Oh, we do have a few rated. How about if they're 2 stars or better? How about 3 stars? He doesn't like a lot of his images, does he? So you can see here, down here at the bottom here, I'm actually rating them, and I'm seeing them up here. Now I'll go ahead and turn that rating off. Oh, that's what that little icon is right here. You see that icon? Turns things on and off. You see that? We're going to see that again and again throughout Lightroom. So I guess when you see that, you might think it maybe is a toggle. Right? So think about how Adobe is building this product, because when it does something, its processes, it means the same thing later on, right? So you don't have to relearn things, and that's also a nice feature. But let's say we come in here and we want to see it by its metadata. Oh, we have any red ones? Any ones with no labels? All of them. I think they were all built in 2008. Anything, let me see, we have everything was made in this one here. So, and that's all the same here, different lenses. Attributes. We're looking for red, 1 star. Text, oh, $2. So I'm just searching, right? See how fast that was? I'm trying to find a specific thing, and I can come in here and find what I'm looking for. And do a quick search. And if you think this guy can do it, do you think the other product that sort of is a little bit like this can do it too? Maybe not exactly in the same way, but yes, do it somewhat. Yeah, maybe. Now, a lot of times you want to kind of add certain metadata to a lot of files more all at once. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this spray can to do it. And you can see here, I can give it a flag, a label, a keyword, and I can just start spraying them. So maybe I will give it a flag. So flags are things that we want. And do we want it to be unflagged, rejected, or flagged? I'll make it flagged, and I'll just spray paint a bunch of flags on there. It could have been anything, right? I could have color-coded it that way. Could have added a keyword that way, right? Now, I'm using it. Oh, no, how do I get that to turn off? I'll just click on it again. So really easy to like just over the stuff. And that's what we want to do in life, don't we? We just want that easy button. And again, that's giving us that beautiful easy button. All right, so I guess we should make a little bit of a collection here. Let me see what we have in here. And I'm going to just take a look at all the designer houses here and decide that maybe I want some of the designer houses split up here. And I'll maybe build a collection. And I just want you to note one other thing here, too. The flag is right there, and that is turned on, and that's off. You see how I'm just toggling it right there? And now I'm doing it with a tilde key, and you can see I'm adding that and going to the next one. Tilde is, they'll say accent grab, I think, in the thing, but I always say tilde because it's the bigger wave on top, and the grave is that little tiny accent mark that I can hardly see on my keyboard. Yeah, so it's right below the escape key. I always say the accent grab because I can see it.
You're using that to flag?
Oh, I always say tilde. I'm using that to flag it, or yeah, or unflag it. It's a toggle. So as you're glancing through them, if you like that one, you can flag it, go to the next one, flag it, go to the next one, you see. You can also use keyboard shortcuts for laying down your colors or your ratings here. And I have this one selected right here, and you can see I just added one star. I could have came down here and clicked on the little icon there, right? I can come in here and do that, but I can come in here and do that, but I can do 3, 4, 5. And you see, I just added that. I made it 4. Now I'm using 7, 8, 9, 0, and you can see I'm color coding it. So they're using 1 through 0, but partly for stars and partly for colors, because those are your favorite things to do to an image, aren't they? If you have multiple ones selected, of course they would do the multiple ones. So you can spray it, or you can find a keyboard shortcut that you like and do it that way, right? Metadata becomes really important to me because it helps me share the stuff with my client. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I do star these things, and then I star them out, and I show my buddy the 5 stars. He says no. I show him the 4 stars. He says no. I show him 3 stars and better. He says no. And sometimes we get down to 1 star. I try not to show him no stars. That's my goal, is never to have no stars. But you know, there's always that exception. So I can come in here and maybe I'll select a few of these guys here, and I want to build a new collection. And you see that little plus sign right there? Remember, we still have smart collections right here, and you can see the smart collections listed right there. And a smart collection is just like kind of like a live search, let's say, right? So it's smartly looking at what's already there, and I'm not hand dragging and dropping something into it. So I can make a new collection. So you can see here, I can create a collection, or I can make a smart collection. I'm going to go ahead and create a collection. And I'm not going to make it smart. So I'll call this, this is, smart is this is actually a designer house. The smart collection is a search, so it's searching by keywords, stars. That's a smart collection, right? A collection is I want these elements. And again, if you use the bridge, you already know this, right? You already know this, because if you get 5, you have a collection and a smart collection. Our old collection in 4 was really a smart collection. And now we have 2 collection types. So if you use those, and it says include selected photos, of course I want to. And what's the benefit of building a collection? Well, I can start to organize these how I want. That's a benefit, right? So a collection is just another storage that I can start to add other things to that I think should be part of that collection. So I can come back in here and decide that I need to add another photograph to that collection. And there's my designer house. And you see I just dragged and dropped it in. You see a little plus symbol right there? I just added it in there. So I can hand tool it, right? If I need a smart search, that's a smart collection. If I just, and you have all this, you have a bunch of them already built for you. You can build your own as well. But if I want a hand-picked search, these are my at the 5-star and the 4-star. I think these would be the best for the ad we're doing today. This is my collection. Not smart, hand-picked. Okay. There's other collections. There's actually a collection for saving your slideshow, your print, and your web, so you remember what you've outputted and you know how you outputted it as well. So there's other collections as well. I'm just sharing 2 with you right now. So say like a published collection. Okay, so we've gotten that, and now let's kind of fix some of these photos here. And I'm going to come in here and, you know, let's just do, well, I'm still in the library state here. And I want to get a close look at this one right here. So I'm going to select it, and I'll type in, sometimes I type in Z for zoom because I can just zoom in and out really quickly. But if I want to stay in that view, I will go to loop.
Go to where?
Loop, E, loop. Because that's a state. That's just a slate right here, right? So I can zoom in here, take a close look at this. And I notice it looks nice, but it's a lot of dark, and there's really missing a little bit of light there. Do you see that? Now I can notice that I'm in my library, and I just have these quick views here. I'm going to scroll up here, and my quick develop. Drop that one down, so we don't have to talk about these. And I'll go to quick develop there. And so, yeah, come on, click on you, not twice, once. So you can see here, the white balance here is as shot. Now, it doesn't always work, but it's nice that you have an easy button if you need to quickly fix it. And so we can come in here and we can say, well, just what do you think it should look like? I don't quite like it. I like it a little bit warmer. How about daylight? Do you see how I'm changing a little bit? I'm just changing the white balance there. As shot. I don't know if you can see it up there. Auto. Daylight. Now I can still try to control that temperature. Look at you and tells me what it's going to do. Come on. Tell me you're going to make it cooler. It's going to pull into the blues. And how about the temperature? Make it warmer. I don't know if you can see the warmer. But that means it's going to pull into the yellows, right? Because that's temperature, right? And what's tint? Anyone know what tint is? Green and red. It's the LAB color system, which is A is blue and yellow, and I'm sorry, A is red and green, and B is blue and yellow. It's a lab color system, right? So it's green, pull into the greens, or pull the opposite way into the reds. Warm, right? Cool it and warm it. So you can customize it, or you can just do a quickie here. You can even try to auto-tone it. Doesn't mean you like it. You can still try to alter that exposure if you want. Vibrance is the saturation without being saturated. It's the best way I can, right? Best way I can explain it. Saturation takes it too high, too fast.
Targeted.
Targeted saturation. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, better than saturation. So you can start to try to fix it here if you like, but that's not the only place we can fix it. But it does give us a quick way to develop our photos. And actually, it does a great job when I had a client, actually it was a friend of mine, did it for free, but she had her child's first birthday, and she's Korean, so she gets married her first birthday, which means it's a really big event. But she was in a basement, and so everything had fluorescent lights on it. And didn't you know? Bam, quick key, pulled it right out, and it was beautiful again. So it went from the overcast to blue to be actually good, beautiful skin tones with no work, right? And that's what you're going to get out of that. But sometimes we need a more controlled environment. And to do that, we would probably go to develop. So I'll go to develop. And you can see here, I have some controls here. And here's my temperature gauge again. Pulling a little warmer there. Here's my tint. Here's my overall exposure. But you see when I pull that up, let me just show you right now. You can see I'm showing you what's going out, right, and it's cutting off, and you can see how it's turning red there. So I might want to fix that. So maybe I'll just go ahead and do a little recovery on it to bring that back down a little bit. Because we know what we're trying to get here is a consistent levels going across. We want darks and we want lights, right, across the board. And so how do we get that back in? Now that's said and done, you know, if you have a lot of green or you have an ocean, you can have a lot of extra color in certain areas, right? So that said and done, we're still trying to get an overview that curve should be pretty consistent all the way across. At least something in all those areas, from dark, the darkest of darks, to the lightest of lights. I have saturation. Watch my saturation. I'm going to oversaturate this, so don't kill me here. That's saturation. Do you see how it just kind of boosted up completely? And this doesn't do it. It just does everything and overdoes it, right? And here is vibrance. So it's more controlled. Now, if you like that kind of control, that's great. And again, you can also come in here and play with your, anyone like curves in Photoshop? I know. I lived in curves in Photoshop here as a child there. And you can see here, you can even control who's the midtone, who's the shadows, who's the highlights, and then start to control that, right? And decide how you want to pull that down or pull it up and give a nice little S-curve if you want to make it look like old-fashioned Kodak film, right? Because what does digital do? Not put S-curve in. And I guess our eye from history is so connected to the S-curve that we just pop it in for good measure. And you can see I was just pulling them like I was in Photoshop, but clearly I could just, you know, pull these and start to play with them here as well. Now, I'm not sure if I want that or not, and notice here, that's right. I can turn it on and off as I decide. But also what I want you to note here, look at my history. Let me go to another image. And there is no history. Let me go to this image here. What's beautiful about your history is that unless you clear it out, and there's times when you have to clear it out because you can't remember 10 billion steps back anyway. But it's nice to be able to hold on to your history forever, unless you don't want to, right? Anyone use the history panel in Photoshop? Anyone? Yeah? Do you know that it's session-based, which means if you quit Photoshop, your history does not exist. Even your snapshots don't exist. But as you're working and you're trying different things, you can actually, instead of using, your history is hard to like control because you have all the steps that you've utilized. You can come back in here and you can create a snapshot and I'll say before curve. And then I'll go ahead and turn that back on, and I'll go ahead and add another one, and I'll say after curve. And now I have a snapshot that I can go back into. So a snapshot is just a memory of where you were in your history. So it's nice to know as you go along here, and I decide to make some more changes to this, so maybe I'll even change it to black and white. Why not? And you can see here I'm changing it to a black and white. I can control who's those reds or whatever, and now I can still go back and choose the other one. what I'm trying to show you here, you have a lot of control, right? You have a lot of control. If people like to control their stuff by hue, saturation, and lightness, they're your controls. What I also like about this is that I can kind of bullseye it and pick a color and start to pull that color in one direction or another. Anywhere where that color is. You can see how the other flower is changing. But think of those tones, like the skin tones you're trying to get down, to be able to drag and drop that. Does anyone use the raw photo space of Photoshop? Do you have one of those in there? Yeah, you do. I'm just trying to connect you because you already know this. If you know those, you know this. If you know this, you know those. Right? So your learning becomes, well, easier. And you actually have them in Photoshop as well. You can see I can control the saturation, and there's my luminance, and there's everything, which is usually just a little bit too much information for anyone to handle. So I'll collapse that back down again. So that was black and white, but how about if you want to come in here and do a little split toning? Right, so we can have that black and white, but then we can come in here and we can change our colors. Yep, like a duotone. Don't know if you like it or not? Go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to collapse that. I'm going to collapse that. You have control over your detail as well. I'm going to turn off the this guy too. Color again. And you can see here, you can start to, I'm going to collapse that one too, we don't need that one. But you can see here, you can sharpen and you can reduce the noise, right? Which means not sharpen. So I'm going to over sharpen so you can see it get very sharp. And let me zoom up on that. There's a tad there. And let me increase that radius. I mean, around it. Let me increase the radius and give you the detail, because then you can really see how it's sharpening. Let me decrease the radius. Let me increase the radius. You see? It's almost like the pixel that has to sharpen. The radius says who around me also needs to sharpen. Now, if I don't want the whole thing to sharpen, and a lot of times you want the edge to sharpen but not anything else, you can actually up that masking, and you can see how the edge is still sharp, but the inside smooth areas are staying smooth. So you can have a lot of control over this. Again, I'm overdoing it for you just so you can see it and emphasize it. But again, these are small little detail things that you're really eyeing, and my machine would be calibrated at this moment because I don't calibrate my machine when I do web, but when I'm doing photography, I do go back and calibrate. So I know I'm looking at everything correctly. And we can see here, this is a little view area, and that's my little loop, and you can see I'm now moving around, taking a look, and see how well I did. Okay, so here's my lens correction here, and I could come in here and based upon that camera, pick up that lens correction. It does know that metadata is to the camera. It would know that camera. And so it could fix those issues with your lens. I'm not going to use that one right now. And if you needed to, you could, let me zoom out of that a little bit. Look, it's from my mom, Mother's Day. And you say, I'll go say I did that. Little vignette. And again, you can actually calibrate to your camera, so your camera may run in one direction or another. And again, it can see those cameras, those camera types, so it knows. But you can see how quickly you can start to alter and change your image there. A lot of times when you change it, you want to know what it looked like originally. I'm using that backslash below the delete key, and you can see I can toggle before and after. That's really great when you're working with clients, because they love to see the stuff they gave you and how you made it better, right? And if you can show a big change and be like, hours of work, No, I didn't use a sprayer. Oh, no, it was hours of work, you see, if you can let them believe that.
What's the top of your-
I'm using the backslash, I can make myself a virtual copy in case I want to go off in a whole different direction and make different changes to it. And so now I have one like that and one like that. It's a little different than a snapshot. A snapshot is moment in time in history, right? And it's designed to go in stages in your history. This is going off in a whole different direction, right? So let's see, we need to crop, maybe fix some sky, you know, some other things. So let's see what else we have in here, what other issues we have in this. I got to go back to that grid, don't I? G for grid, because this is much faster, isn't it? Okay, let's see what we have and what kind of issues we have in these beautiful photographs. Oh, here's a perfect example.
Once you change it, it's changed in your file then?
It's changed inside of Lightroom. Inside of Lightroom. It's a non-destructive environment, right? Which means I can take it off, turn it on, the original image is still there, sitting out there for the bridge, right? It's just, if I want to carry that change to a client, I export it. But what's nice about this is that when I make the changes, and my client has me crop things on a daily basis, right? We take the same photo, we use it one way, we use it a different way, and I can make a virtual copy of that, keep a memory of it, you may put it in a collection that way, and then I can still have it, but it's not costing me extra hard drive space because I only carry that one original source file, right? I output it and I give him the files that he needs to get his finished job done, and I give him those images, but I don't have to keep them on my system, right? They're not taking up any room for me because I'm using Lightroom to do it. And this is why I love Lightroom, because it's not costing me anything. It's a very non-destructive process. And if you lived in Photoshop most of your life, you remember how destructive Photoshop has been. It's not completely destructive anymore because now we have things that are very smart. Thank goodness, right? But that said and done, this is even more non-destructive. If that makes sense. So I'm going to take a look at this one here. I'll go back to my loop to get a closer look at it. I'm going to zoom out, thank you. And I'm going to go into develop it. Now when I develop it, I'm going to go through all these really quickly, but I'm going to actually use this one right here. Maybe I'll crop it afterwards. Here's my adjustment brush, and I love this because you see I can brush that on. Anyone know the keyboard shortcut to change your brush size in Photoshop? Oh yeah, you know it? It's brackets, right? Oh, am I using my brackets? Oh, you see that? Yeah. You can't see my hand because it's hidden. But yes, I'm using my brackets. I'm not coming over here and trying to resize it. Right down here, brush size. You can, but I like the brackets, right? Because then I can change it while I'm working. So now I'm going to have a new one here, right? And I'm going to custom. No, I want to burn it in a little bit because you see the sky is really not even there, is it? But otherwise, it's a beautiful shot. And let's see if we can just burn that in a little bit. And you can see here, all I'm doing is filling it in, and I should be a lot neater about that. And I can minus it out if it got too much, right? Option. So you can see how quickly I can start to change that, darken it, show it up again. And you see that's my point right there, and I'm going to turn that off, and there it is. You see the sky come back in? Now I have to clean this up right here, and you can see I put the overlay back on so you can, so I can clean it up. But you can see how quickly I can start to change that. But that's a very non-destructive process because that's the original image. In Photoshop, what would that be? Another layer probably? Nick. And so when you start using Lightroom, what's going to happen is that some of the processes that you use in Photoshop will move over to Lightroom. You'll really start to use Lightroom because of its non-destructive behavior, and you will finish it off in Photoshop as you need to. Now that's something done. Let's say we want to crop this, and I'll go ahead and use my crop tool here, and you can see here, I can start to crop that image as I need to. I can choose an aspect ratio if I want. And there's my new crop. Again, right, I can always take that crop out as well. Right, I can always just delete that crop. So you can see here, I have issue on this image here, so let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and get my loop on it. And right there, that's the issue. You see that? I think that is from my lens. Dirty lens. Yeah, you think I would have cleaned it first. So let me see, what do we want to do? I want to develop again. And I'm going to go ahead and either clone or heal it. So I'll click on this area here, and I'll drag over here. And that's a clone, and that's a heal. And both of them actually work. That's a clone, that's a here. You see how the clone there is picking up the darker color right there? And so it might be a little bit dark, but the heal blends in with the destination, and it's just using the pattern, and so it cleans it up very, very quickly. So again, a very non-destructive process.
How did you get to that spot edit?
Sure, so I went to develop. This is my first icon, which is my crop. This is the second icon, which is my heal or clone, what they call it, the spot removal. This is my red eye. And then this last one here is going to give me a gradient filter. And then we also already use the brush in specific areas. So maybe I'll put a gradient filter on this one here, and that's going to be really hard, so focus. And you can see there is my gradient filter. And of course, we can still move it and size it. We can even put a color in it if we want to. So it gives you quite a bit of control there, doesn't it? Now I'm going to take a few of these guys, not that many. I'll take those, and I'll go to Photo here, and I am going to create a Photomerge. I'm not going to do as many as I had before, but I'm going to still try it. So here I'm jumping over to Photoshop. So I'm going to merge to panorama in Photoshop. Do you see that? Let's see if it doesn't take too long. Has the images selected? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'll just say OK. Hope for the best. See what Adobe can do for me. And I'll crop it, not that well, but pretty well, right? There it is. Now, because I want to do this really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and merge those down. Thank you. And I'm going to make my selection tool with my lasso. And let me just lasso a part that I want to fix. There's a little piece there so we can see it. And I'm going to go to Edit and choose Fill. And I'm going to use Content Aware and hope for the best. I'm not going to do the rest of it because it takes a little while, but it does an amazing job. And that was Edit, Fill, and then all I did, I'm not going to do it again because there's nothing selected. I just chose Content Aware, right? Okay, I'll close it, save it. Now, if I wasn't done and I wanted to edit again, I could go back into my photo. I'm just going to right-click on it because I'm lazy. And let's see, I need to edit again. Edit in. I'm going to choose Adobe Photoshop again. Watch what happens. I'm not going to go back out there, but I want you to see what happens. Does it ask me? You see that? So here, see, this is already baked in, right? So this is now a Photoshop element or an image that I built in Photoshop inside of Lightroom, right? So I brought it back in. So it says, well, do you want to make another copy of it? So you have two of them now, right? Or do you want to edit a copy with, so maybe you went back and you changed some levels or curves in here. Do you want to keep that, do you want to bake that in now when you go back out? Or do you want to just edit the original, and if you add any development to it, it's not there anymore, but we'll edit this one that we're still working on. A lot of times, if I'm still working on it, because a lot of times I do things very quick with my client, and I'm just shorthanding to give myself information what to do later, and he always says, no, I'll take it. No, it's not done. You see, the branch looks the same branch 10 times over, right? I need to make different branches. But I was just asking you what you wanted covered up so I could go back and do it. And so, and these would be still separate layers, but I would go back and edit that original because I'm not done working on it, right? And so a lot of times when I'm in Lightroom, I'm actually choosing that one, but you can see how it defaulted to edit a copy. I just want you to know that was there because I love that feature. And again, I have to go back to my library to see what I have, and because I'm supposed to show you a mask, so I will show you a mask. So I'll go find an image that I want to mask out a little bit on, and I'll choose this one right here because I want to get this ready for my InDesign ad, right? So I don't want the sky in there. I want to get that out, and so I'll go ahead and edit in, and I'll actually open it this time as a smart object. Now, mind you, I have 8 gigs of RAM, and that's a lot of RAM as you think, but if you have like 8 smart objects open from Lightroom, and you have Lightroom open and maybe InDesign because that's what you're really working at the end of the day, do you think maybe you might crash? Maybe. I'll leave that up to you. It's a smart object. You see how smart it is? Let me double click on it and open it up. See how smart it is. I'm not going to make any changes in it today, but I want you to know it's there. Come on. What did it just open up in? My raw space. I can still make changes. So if it's a smart object where I'm making the changes is in my raw space. Isn't these the same tools? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use my quick selection tool, and it's kind of like a magic wand, and I'll make this bigger. I'm not going to do it really great today, but we'll see how well we can do this. And I'm just going to select that background there. You can see how it's trying to pick it up now. And this is killing me a little bit. I shouldn't have made a smart object because it's a smart object. And so it is taking a little bit longer to grab that. Let me zoom into that a little bit. I got too much in some places. I'm going to make my quick selection tool a little bit smaller and do the alternative or option and take out a little bit here. And I will add a little bit in there. So let's say that's good enough. I'll refine the edges, see what we have. And I can see here, maybe feather that up a little bit, soften the edge a little bit, so it mixes in. And I can view this on black, if that helps me. I used to use F and cycle all the way through. But you see how I cut it out there. I'm just going to keep it as a selection right now, so I'm just going to choose OK. There's my selection. And I'm just going to make a new layer on top. I'll first put it on the top, but then maybe I'll add some type and maybe just grab that selection and use it as something else. So I'm going to go ahead and go into that black and white cookie at the bottom of my layers panel because I'm in Photoshop. And I'm going to choose to add a solid color. And when I choose a solid color, I think my client would probably like it if I chose a green in the image, maybe a lighter green, you know, or that's actually his website color. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to choose OK. And that looks great, except now I really wanted to add some type behind that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and load that selection. And I'm going to choose the smart object. I'm going to inverse the selection, select inverse, Command-Shift-I. And I'm going to go ahead and mask it out. And you see a little mask icon at the bottom. Or you can go to your mask panel here. And I'm going to just go make a pixel mask. I'll turn off the mask here. Oops, it covered everything up. I'll move it down, and now it looks like that, right? If I notice here I cut too much off there, I can always go back with a brush to the mask and brush that in or out. No, I'm talking to you. Thank you. So we can always come back in here and talk to that specific mask. Now, I'm also going to add some type. So I'm going to choose this layer here. I'm going to use my type tool, and I'm going to add some type. I'll bring up my paragraph and character controls. I'll leave outline to the center. whatever my character, whatever the color I want. And I'll just put his name. And I'll hit enter to apply it. And maybe I'll still make it bigger. And you can see now it's a little bit behind that image there, get what I want. And I'll go ahead and close it. I'll save it. Now again, it's still not, I haven't exported it yet, so it's still just in here. I do have some cleaning up to do. Probably not the right font family there, but good enough to show the client something. And there it is. So now we have that image. I'll go ahead and zoom up on it so you can see. Or maybe I should zoom out a little bit. There we go. Still have some cleaning up to do on it, but you can see I just brought that back. And again, if I go back and open in Photoshop, I still have my layers attached, right? So I can start to build out with it. And the last thing I probably want to do if I needed to give it to my client is that I'll just go ahead and export it. Export it, how? I'll export it as a JPEG, and I'm going to save it to the desktop and just export that one image. It's exporting it. So that wasn't still outside of, it wasn't outside in my system yet because it was still held inside of Lightroom, right? So Lightroom is attaching to Photoshop, making those changes, and pulling it back into itself. And now you can see on my desktop, there's my image. I could save it as a Photoshop file and then I could still work with it. But I'm giving it to the client. He can't use Photoshop anyway. You don't change anything after I give it to you, right? It's what I give you. But you can see how quickly you can start to utilize those products together. So I'm clearly still masking in Photoshop, right? I'm still using those awesome art filters in Photoshop. But I'm starting to do the corrections, those color corrections, the exposure corrections inside of Lightroom. And I'm metadating the stuff either in the bridge or Lightroom. I don't care because they talk to each other, and so I can migrate them back and forth. So I'm happy about that because so much of my legacy stuff was in the bridge before I got into Lightroom. And to have that come in just one-to-one with no issues is one of the most beautiful things that you can ever imagine. And be able to send it back out so that if I give my client those files, that metadata is attached to it and they can do the same search that I do. Yeah, so this was just an overview, and all we're trying to show you here is clearly between the bridge and Photoshop and Lightroom and the raw space, they all come together to make one beautiful application, right? Because what Adobe does best than anybody else is connections. And that's why I like Lightroom, is because of the connections back into my Adobe line and the ease of use, right? So those two things that are really working for me. So thank you for coming, and hopefully it was helpful.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.